Visibility has been a hot topic in every Frostbite Engine Battlefield game, and Battlefield 6 is no different, as players do complain about problems when it comes to visually identifying enemy players. This topic is actually quite complex, so in today's video I want to focus on just a few, but very important elements. We will start with issues that can be fixed by you, the player, and then continue to design flaws that must be fixed by DICE. So, first of all, a big contributing factor to why players die to an enemy that they couldn't see is caused by their playstyle. Especially streamers and content creators, but also players coming to Battlefield from other movement-based shooters, have created that narrative that the correct way to play Battlefield is by frantically sprinting, jumping and sliding constantly. This belief is reinforced by them primarily sharing clips where they manage to pull off crazy kill streaks playing that way. However, for almost everyone else, this playstyle will cause that they miss many enemy players due to the scale and complexity of Battlefield. It's not just because they don't have the time to visually identify the enemy in their peripheral vision, but also because they do not have time to look at the minimap, where players even get auto-spotted when using a suppressor. We are painfully aware that the audio has massive problems in Battlefield 6, where sounds are sometimes just missing entirely or get lost in the mix. But we also know that in every game since Battlefield 3 many players showed zero awareness of their surroundings, as they did not listen to what was happening around them, which also caused them to die to an enemy player they didn't notice just because they didn't pay attention. So if you think that you died to an enemy player that you did not see nor hear, then I highly recommend to watch your recorded gameplay very carefully. You will then notice that you missed many enemy players that did show up on the minimap. You missed enemy players that had an icon above their head, and you will notice that you ran past enemies that you didn't notice in your peripheral vision. And all of that is caused by playing the game at a pace that does not allow you to take in and process all the information the game provides you with. Besides missing enemy players, that fast playstyle also has a negative impact on teamwork, as players are so focused on the enemy and constantly staying mobile that they do not pay attention to their teammates. Active orders, and overall causes that players make poor, rushed decisions that frequently get them killed, or totally ignore the goal of the game mode. The fast time to action in Battlefield 6 further amplifies that issue, as it doesn't provide players with much time to think, and so players mostly start reacting. Then there's the design problem that players blend into the background. The map designers would be able to dial in visibility quite easily if all players of a team use the same uniform and so create a grounded and realistic atmosphere. But since DICE had to add customization to the game, you will always end up with a uniform completely disappearing in the background depending on the map and the location on that map, as it is simply impossible to design maps in a way where every single uniform will always clearly separate from the background, unless they make them glow. That is just how it is when you allow players to choose from uniforms using vastly different designs and color schemes. Not many will pick one that stands out and screams, "Shoot me!" When we talk about visibility, we must also talk about spotting. Depending on your barrel attachment, you will not only show up on the minimap of enemy players, but also get an icon appear above your head when you fire your gun. When the barrel attachment of your choice reveals you on the minimap and in the world, then players up to 75 meters away will see an icon above your head when you fire your gun. After 75 meters and up to 150 meters, you only show up on the minimap. When you equip a suppressor, then there is no icon above your head when you fire your gun, but up to until 15 meters you are revealed to all players inside that range on their minimap. Personally, I can live with that automatic 2D ping on the minimap, but that 3D icon above your head should be removed entirely. There's also another form of automatic spotting. In this scene here you can barely make out the enemy player. However, when I just move my crosshair near him, I get a 3D icon above his head, without doing anything. This works when the enemy is within 25 meters, and that distance is the same when you aim down your sights. This even works through the smoke that is placed by the map designer. Because of that, these smoke elements are not very useful as a tactical element, as they do not really conceal the movement of players. So when you run towards an enemy and look in his general direction, or move past him with your crosshair, then he will show up on your monitor. But when you are busy frantically sprinting and sliding across the map, then chances are that you will miss that. However, While this helps with visibility, personally I'm strongly against mechanics that reveal enemies just by looking in their direction. Even though this is not as horrible as it used to be in Battlefield 4, where this initially worked across the entire map until they dialed it back. Now let's get to the spicy stuff. In this scene here I cannot see an enemy anywhere. However, I just felt that there clearly is one. Now the problem here is that this suitcase, which that enemy player is concealed by, does not exist on his monitor. In this example, I turned right here to look for enemies, but on my monitor there's a table that completely conceals that player, who is not even aware of that as the table does not exist for him. This happens with quite a few of the smaller elements that are placed on the maps as decoration. Now, this issue is not new. I talked about this way back in Battlefield 4 already, as this happens by design. You see, these objects that are just decoration do respond to the physics simulation on your client. However, they are not fully networked, which means that when something happens that displaces that object, then every client runs its own independent physics simulation, and so it ends up in a different location for every player. The reason why these are not fully networked is to reduce the load on the networking, aka the netcode. But for objects of this size, that can cause quite a problem, as you have seen. And the enemy player who is hidden by it does not even know that you cannot see him. Then there are smoke elements that are also mostly used for decoration. Some of these have a very odd behavior, as you can see through them when you get too close or stand inside. This is clearly a design issue, as we tested this with different graphics settings and it always behaved the same. Another aspect to the problem with visibility is that the interior of buildings is very dark when you look inside. However, in this case we also have smoke that you can see through when you are inside the building, but not when you are on the outside. When it comes to smoke grenades, then these did not suffer from any of those issues. They always correctly blocked 3D icons and their effect was in sync for both players. However, both the passive as well as the active spotting icon above the head of the enemy player does not nearly disappear fast enough, which allows you to shoot at enemies that are totally hidden by the smoke. This needs to be changed. Then there's also the topic of head glitching. We did do a few tests, and while at first it did look like head glitching is a thing, it appears that bullets do exit from the barrel of the gun and not from the eyes of the player model. In extreme cases like this, where the barrel just barely clears the obstacle, you do however only see a small part of the head, which makes it look like head glitching occurs, while it doesn't. More testing is required though to see if there are still some bugs left here. Now, many of you who have followed my channel for years have asked me when I will test the hit registration, the time to kill, time to death, measure the network delay and explain features like the network graph, like I used to do for Battlefield 4, 1, 5 and many other games in the past. The problem I have with Battlefield 6 is that it is impossible to do tests on the live servers, as matches only start when the server is full, there is no switch teams option, which means I cannot get my test players in opposing teams, and even if I could, the maps are so crowded that my test players would die instantly. At first glance you'd think that Portal is a great option to run these tests. But as you can see here, Portal servers still only run with a 30 Hz tick rate, while live servers run at 60 Hz. So testing on a Portal server is not representative of the experience you get on a live server. We have been told that we should get 60 Hz in Portal soon, but we still do not know when. Another problem remains that in Portal we cannot select a region where we want the server to be hosted. So when I manage to deploy a server, as capacity is still an issue, I frequently end up on one that is located in the east coast of the United States, to which I have a ping of 110 milliseconds. Besides that, the admin tools also do not allow you to move a player to the other team, and players cannot switch teams either. It would also be very helpful to have an option to set the tick rate like we could do 12 years ago in Battlefield 4, where we could run servers at 144 Hz with a reduced player count. So I really want to test everything related to the netcode and explain how it works, but so far the game does not allow me to do that. As soon as 60 Hz becomes available in Portal, I will start to run tests, and that should then shed some light on many of the things that we all experience when playing the game. So stay tuned for that, and until then, have a nice day and take care.